Hey guys, tonight we slip back into a world that's somehow both more proper and more absurd than ours. A world of waxed mustaches, monocles, and social clubs where men sip cocktails that literally glow in the dark. You walk through a stiffly tailored Edwardian street scene, horse hooves clacking on cobblestones, chimney smoke curling up into the London fog, and everyone's talking about a miracle substance you've probably seen on warning signs radium. But tonight it's not a warning, it's a wonder. You're stepping into a moment in history when people looked at a chunk of radioactive rock and thought, this would taste great. Imagine that instead of banning it, they bottled it, drank it, swore by it, and yes, some of them died glowing. You probably won't survive this. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And drop your location and local time in the comments. I love seeing where you're all listening from. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're standing in a tidy Edwardian pharmacy, polished mahogany shelves stacked with glass bottles, each filled with liquids in hues so vivid they seem almost enchanted lavender tonics. Emerald elixirs, amber oils, but what catches your eye is the faint bluish-green glow from a thick little bottle tucked behind the counter. The label reads, Radithor, certified radioactive water. Behind the counter, a spectacled chemist polishes his scale. He looks up with a grin like a man who knows the future and believes it's bright. Literally, radium is the latest craze. Just discovered a few years ago by the now revered Madame Curie, this miraculous element has quickly gone from laboratory curiosity to cultural darling. People are obsessed. It glows in the dark. It gives off heat. It might cure cancer, or so they hope. But it's also exotic, rare, and very, very expensive, which of course makes it instantly desirable. You pass a newspaper stand. The headline practically screams, Radium, the energy of the sun, bottled for you. Beneath it, there's an ad promising virility, endurance, and youthful glow. Some cheeky copywriter even jokes that it makes you shine in all the right places. Because of course they do. Everyone's talking about it. Society ladies apply radium creams to fight wrinkles. Wealthy men down radioactive tonics to keep up with their business rivals. Athletes claim it boosts stamina and the upper crust. Oh, they soak in it, literally bathe in radioactive water at the poshest spas. The mood of the age is intoxicating. Electricity is still relatively new. X-rays are a medical novelty that let you peer inside the body like magic. There's a sense that invisible forces raise currents waves are all powerful, all healing, and all somehow good. You're living in an era that believes what can't be seen must be working on a higher level. It's a belief system wrapped in silk and soaked in gin. Historians still argue whether Edwardians were truly that naive or whether some knew better, but preferred to believe the fantasy. After all, wouldn't you want to think that glowing water could fix your back pain? You step outside and stroll down a leafy avenue. Street lamps flicker on as the sky turns sherbet orange and shop windows hum with excitement, literally. In one boutique, a display of radium pendants promises eternal charm. In a bookstore, a new medical manual proclaims radium a divine gift to mankind, and tucked beside it a more curious title. The glow within awakening, the inner flame, through radiant elements. You keep walking. A man passes by whistling cheerfully, clutching a small wooden box. You glance as he opens it inside a delicate ampoule of glowing fluid, nested like a jewel. He tips his hat to you and strides into a gentleman's club, where no doubt he'll boast about how it rebalances the body's electric harmony. You're starting to notice something. It's not just the product that's glowing, it's the promise. Energy, vitality, youth. In an age terrified of aging and obsessed with progress, radium is more than science, it's salvation in a bottle. A miracle you can buy, swallow, bathe in. Of course there are whispers. That some lab assistants complain of odd sores, that one early researcher lost part of his jaw. But these stories are dismissed as rumors, collateral damage. Besides, you reassure yourself you're not handling raw radium, you're just sipping it, just a drop or two. Tonight you'll try your first, You duck into a narrow apothecary tucked between a watchmaker and a tailor. The inside smells like mint clove and ozone. The pharmacist smiles without looking up, as if he already knows what you're here for. "One Redithor," he asks. You nod. He sets the bottle on the counter. It hums faintly like it's alive. You feel a flutter in your stomach, not fear, but something more primitive. Anticipation. He pulls out a glass with a theatrical flourish, pours a capful, and slides it over. "Bottoms up," he says. You raise the glass. It smells like iron and fresh rain. You sip. The taste, not much. Metallic. But the idea of it crackles through you like champagne. You feel stronger already. Maybe it's a placebo. Maybe it's just expensive water with a party trick. But you've bought into it, body and soul. Back on the street, your breath feels fresher. The wind seems crisper. Your posture straightens involuntarily. You half expect your footsteps to leave glowing footprints behind you. Across the street, another man exits a similar shop. He glows ever so slightly under his collar. You wonder, what if they're right? What if the energy of the universe is coursing through you now? And what could possibly go wrong? You wake the next morning with a sense of renewed purpose, or maybe it's just the lingering glow in the back of your throat. Either way, there's a certain thrill as you button your shirt, smooth your waistcoat, and glance at yourself in the mirror. Nothing's changed exactly, but there's a suggestion of sparkle in your eyes, like the promise of something luminous just beneath the surface. The papers on your doorstep practically vibrate with excitement. Radium triumphs. Again, one headline declares. Another boasts Curie's marvel from the lab to the breakfast table. Madame Marie Curie is everywhere now, a scientific icon, a celebrity without needing to perform. Her discovery of radium back in 1898 lit a fire beneath the public's imagination, and that fire has only grown brighter. You read the article, slowly sipping your morning tea, sans radium for now. The piece is fawning they call Curie a modern alchemist, turning dull ore into glowing gold. You nod to yourself. Hard to argue with that. She didn't just find a new element. She opened a door into a different dimension of existence. A realm of invisible power pulsing life and silent glowing mysteries. What they don't print in these glowing profiles is the side room chaos. The lab notebooks crusted with strange burns. The vials stored in drawers that hum at night. The way Curie's skin sometimes tingles after long hours among her discoveries. Historians still argue whether she fully understood the risks she was taking, or whether the world simply wasn't ready to hear the danger part yet. Still, there's no denying her genius. You picture her in her modest lab, carefully separating pitchblende by hand. Tons of it until a single glimmer of radium salt shines in a dish like crystallized moonlight. That kind of obsession doesn't just change science, it alters the culture. And now that culture is yours. You stroll through Hyde Park past couples picnicking in parasols, children flying kites, and men in tweed debating over thick medical texts. One of them gestures dramatically with a glowing pen. You slow down casually, eavesdropping. He says it stimulates the nerves directly, one man argues. Charges the blood with vitality, another scoffs. Bah, vitality is a superstition. This is modernity, electric energy drawn from nature itself. They're both wrong and also somehow completely right. In Edwardian England, the lines between myth and medicine blur like fog on a warm morning. Every new scientific breakthrough becomes a kind of soft religion. People want to believe. They want the next thing, the future, the shimmer. You head toward a crowded bookstore just off the main square. Inside, there's a new table display. The Invisible Healers. Titles like The Ether Body, Rays of Life, and Radiant Recovery are stacked high. One dusty little book tucked near the bottom catches your eye. Radium and the Soul, A Philosopher's Inquiry. The back cover claims radium aligns human consciousness with cosmic rhythms. You chuckle, but not entirely dismissively. That's the thing. Nobody really understands radium, yet not even the experts. Which means in this moment, anything feels possible. It's Schrodinger's science, both healing and harming, until you drink it and find out. There's even talk of radium-powered engines. Submarines lit by self-glowing panels. Clocks that never dim. You see a pamphlet featuring a sketch of a home where every object glows faintly, requiring no gaslight, no flame, just perpetual comfort drawn from the heart of the atom. And sure, they might have skipped the part where that house slowly poisons every single resident. But hey, progress has a price. Your stomach rumbles. Lunch. You find a stylish tea room known for its invigorating specials. The menu lists cucumber sandwiches, strawberry tartlets, and there it is. Radium tonic. Shot 3p. The waiter, barely out of school and trying too hard to sound like a Cambridge graduate, recites its supposed effects: sharper mind, better complexion, and a temperament that draws admiration. You order two, just in case one isn't enough. By the time you're halfway through your tartlet, you feel it, or maybe imagine it. A low warmth in your chest, a sort of bright buzz in your limbs. The room seems clearer. The color's richer. It's not a high, it's a hum. A few tables over, a woman with a lace parasol swirls a glowing spoon in her tea. She catches your eye, smiles slyly, and sips. There's a twinkle of shared understanding. You're both early adopters of something the rest of the world doesn't quite get yet. That's the funny thing about being ahead of the curve. You never know if you're pioneering genius, or just politely queuing for disaster. Outside again, the city pulses around you, and you realize how much the glow has already infiltrated daily life. Shops sell radium-laced beauty creams and talcum powders. Hair salons advertise radium scalp rubs. Even children's toys are being made with painted elements that shine at night. And the public eats it up. Because this isn't just about health, it's about hope. The promise that science has finally conquered fatigue, age, sadness, frailty. The stuff that makes us inconveniently human. And yet, you notice here and there things the papers don't dwell on. A clerk whose fingernails glow faintly even in daylight. A shop assistant who wears gloves year-round, though it's June. A young woman at the edge of the park wincing as she bites into her sandwich. Her teeth are cracked. Tiny signs easily dismissed. Historians still debate when exactly the mood started to shift. Whether it was the accumulation of small warnings or one big story that cracked the illusion wide open. For now, though, the golden age of radium has barely begun. The glow is still seductive. The ads are still shameless, and your next bottle awaits. As the sun sets and the gas lights flicker on, you duck into a corner pub. A brass sign boasts, "Now serving electric ale." A novelty brew allegedly brewed near Radium Springs. You order one, if only to complete the absurdity of your day. You raise the pint to your lips. It sparkles faintly in the glass. And just before you drink, you catch your reflection in the mirror behind the bar. For a second, just a second, you wonder if your pupils are glowing. The next few weeks pass in a golden haze. You've developed a casual routine, wake-up stretch, sip your Radathor, and bask in the subtle hum of being well. Just a little extra alive. Everything feels a touch brighter, doesn't it? The mornings are sharper. Your skin glows with a dewiness you tell yourself is youth, not mild radiation exposure. Even your handwriting's gotten bolder, probably. You're not alone, of course. Radium is no longer a novelty. It's a necessity. Ads now shout from every surface. Recharge your life. Don't let your blood sleep. Glow with strength. Not age. These slogans adorn trams, leaflets, matchboxes. You spot one ridiculous poster in a shop window, a cartoon man, flexing his muscles while a bolt of radium lightning strikes his chest. He's smiling too hard. His teeth glow. This isn't just marketing. It's an ideology. Health is no longer about clean air and boiled water. It's about being electrified, infused aglow with modernity. Everyone wants to be a walking Edison bulb. You pass by a fashionable health club. Its newest offering, radium-fortified mineral water served in crystal goblets alongside Swedish massage and lung-expanding exercises on a rooftop garden. A porter in stiff white gloves holds the door for you. You hesitate. Why not? Inside, a symphony of self-improvement plays out. Men in tight, short-sleeved shirts lift antique-looking dumbbells. A silver tray circulates with small cups of glowing water. You take one. It fizzes. It tastes faintly of citrus and battery acid. The man next to you, an accountant judging by the ink stains on his fingers, toasts your health. You know, he says confidentially, since I started drinking it, I haven't had a single cold. Even my hair's come back. He tips his bowler hat. His scalp glows beneath it like a faint halo. You nod and smile, pretending not to notice that his eyebrows are gone. One thing you do notice more and more now is who is selling these glowing miracles. Quacks mostly, but charismatic ones. Snake oil has evolved. These new peddlers wear pocket watches and bow ties and give public lectures titled things like The Spark of Life Atomic Wellness for the Modern Gentleman. Historians still argue whether most of these experts truly believed in what they sold, or whether they simply saw a luminous dollar sign. The line between fraud and fandom blurs easily when everyone's a little drunk on the future. You wander into a bookstore and find a new bestseller. The Rays That Heal. The author, an enthusiastic American named Dr. William J. Bailey, argues that radium can cure everything from melancholy to impotence. There's a drawing of him smiling confidently beside a bottle of Radithor, his own product. You squint. He does look remarkably youthful for a man pushing 40. Then again, it's a sketch. You can't really trust an illustrator with that kind of bias. Outside again, the city seems to pulse with energy. Not the chaotic buzz of a modern metropolis, but something subtler, a belief in magic cloaked as science. A quiet certainty that the problems of the body can be solved not with patience or care, but with a single dose of something brilliant. You visit a friend in hospital. Nothing serious, just a stubborn flu. But even here in the clean, antiseptic hallways, you spot the glow. A bottle of radium cream on the nightstand. A nurse adjusting a patient's pillow with fingers faintly tinted green. A tray of small glasses on a rolling cart, all fizzing softly. It's not just in the hospitals either. Radium is slowly bleeding into every aspect of life. Bread companies flirt with irradiated loaves for extra freshness. One enterprising entrepreneur is infusing milk. And a children's book you browse one lazy afternoon includes a glowing dragon named Sir Radium, whose fire restores weary nights. Even fashion joins the party. Ladies' scarves dyed with radium-based pigments shimmer in dimly lit ballrooms. Some shoes glow faintly on the dance floor. A man at a gala boasts that his walking stick contains a sliver of radium in the handle for balance and charisma, he claims. At this point, you begin to suspect the world has gone slightly insane. And yet, you're right there with them. The thing is, you do feel better. At least for now. You're sleeping less, moving more, laughing harder. You have a spring in your step, and whether it's radium or just well-dressed placebo, it's working. Sort of. But you're not blind. One evening you visit an acquaintance, let's call him James, who's been drinking triple doses of Radithor for months now. He greets you at the door with a handshake that's just a little too enthusiastic. You have to try this new batch, he insists, practically vibrating. Tastes like the future. You oblige. It's strong, bitter. More metallic than before. James sits across from you in his ornate sitting room, talking too fast, smiling too wide. And you can't help but notice his teeth look odd dull somehow. The tips are slightly gray. You sip politely. Change the subject. Leave early. That night, brushing your own teeth, you pause. There's a metallic aftertaste in your mouth that won't quite go away. Historians still debate when the first warning signs were actually noticed. Some claim there were hospital records of mysterious lesions by 1907. Others suggest the symptoms were hidden beneath social pride because who wants to admit their glow-up is actually a meltdown? Back in your room, you open your latest bottle of tonic. The glass catches the moonlight, refracting in a way that's mesmerizing. Inside, it sparkles like a tiny galaxy, like bottled stardust. You raise it slowly, watching how the light plays on your skin. And you wonder for the first time quietly what else might be glowing. You don't stop drinking it, not yet. Not when it's everywhere. Not when your neighbors, your barber, and even your grocer are on the glow train. Besides, it still tastes like confidence. Still smells faintly of rainstorms and fresh ambition. And now you're noticing something else the entrepreneurs are multiplying. The radium quacks are out in full velvet-gloved force. One's handing out flyers on your street corner this morning. He's sharply dressed, smiling with the eagerness of a man who believes his own brochure. He presses one into your palm with a wink. Rejuvenate your blood with pure radiance. TM, it says. Beneath the elegant lettering, a black and white sketch of a weary gentleman transformed into a strapping, light-beaming hero by the mysterious Z-Radium treatment method. You chuckle. But as you continue walking, you spot a line snaking down the block, leading to a small wooden storefront, newly painted gold. At the front of the queue, an older man in suspenders, trembling hands, clutching a handkerchief. He looks desperate, pale, but hopeful. This is no longer just a fad for the fashionable. The quack parade is attracting everyone now, the unwell, the elderly, the broken-hearted. Radium isn't just a health tonic. It's become a promise, an escape, a shortcut to the better version of yourself. You step inside one of these miracle shops. A bell jingles. The air is thick with clove oil talc and something slightly acidic. Behind the counter, a woman with shockingly red lipstick beams at you. New to our radiance regimen, sir? She asks, pulling out a glass vial that glows like captured fireflies. May I recommend our starter package? It includes face cream, bone-fortifying tablets, and our proprietary night syrup. Gentle on the stomach, strong on results. You nod, pretending to consider it while scanning the walls. Framed testimonials everywhere. A fisherman who regained strength in both shoulders. A banker who grew back the hair on his temples. A socialite who swears her romantic flair improved after 2 doses a week. Each story sounds too tidy, too miraculous. Each portrait too airbrushed. And yet, you're tempted. Because part of you wants to believe. It's the same part that bought magnetic insoles and briefly tried to realign your chakras after one rainy weekend in Bath. Historians still argue whether the sellers genuinely thought they were improving lives, or were just opportunists capitalizing on the mystery. Some were likely both flawed visionaries with glowing wares and a persuasive grin. Back outside, you head toward a newly opened boutique called House of Radiance. It's aggressively modern. Glass steel, a logo shaped like a stylized atom. Inside, products stacked like fine chocolates. Radium face powder in gilded tins. Glowing eye drops. Lip balm that promises a kiss kissed by science. You pick up a jar of like Radiaskin, Tamiyime, Night Cream. Open it and stare at the gently glowing swirl inside. It smells like lilacs and metal. You smear a bit on your hand, it tingles. Not painfully, just enough to remind you it's there. You begin to wonder if the tingling is supposed to be good. By now, even everyday things are starting to carry that eerie shimmer. Toothpaste brands compete for who can glow brightest in a dark bathroom. Cigarettes infused with microscopic charged dust promise a buzz that's from the inside out. And someone somewhere decides to market, radium soap, which fizzes on contact with water and allegedly vibrates impurities away. You're beginning to feel like a walking chemistry experiment. But the real theater of absurdity, it's the health expos. You attend one curiosity dragging you to a crowded exhibition hall filled with glinting booths and wildly exaggerated claims. Barkers shout promises over the thrum of chamber music. A mustached man in a cape demonstrates a radium inhalation hood, claiming it clears the lungs, the soul, and possibly one's taxes. Another station displays underwear for men and women, with radium-lined fabric intended to stimulate vitality where it matters most. You stare longer than you mean to. The vendor notices. Guaranteed to wake your mornings, he says, with a raised brow. Or your money back. You take the pamphlet, you can't help yourself. At the center of the hall is a glittering display case with a single vial of raw radium salt. It glows with a terrifying beauty held behind thick glass guarded like a crown jewel. You stand in front of it for a long moment, watching it throb gently like a heartbeat in slow motion. A whisper behind you, they say it contains the energy of 1,000 suns. You turn. An old man in a crisp linen suit leans on his cane eyes locked on the vial. They also say it might eat you alive from the inside. He chuckles, but who really knows? You offer a smile, unsure if he's joking. He doesn't blink. Back home, your medicine cabinet is starting to look like a portable uranium mine. You've got creams, drops, powders, and tablets all arranged neatly, all labeled with glowing confidence. Some nights brushing your teeth, you wonder if you could turn off the light and still see your grin. Then one day you wake with a headache that lingers past breakfast. You drink extra tonic. Rub the cream a little harder. Tell yourself you've just been working too much. That it's the weather. That it can't be the radium. Because after all, this is the age of progress. The age where science is always right until it's disastrously wrong. You're standing in front of your mirror again. Same collar, same combed hair, same carefully neutral expression. But something feels different. Not quite wrong yet, but off. Like a violin string tuned just a bit too tight. Your skin looks a little more translucent. There's a dull ache behind your cheekbones. You run your tongue across your teeth and wince. Sharp? Sensitive? Like cold metal against nerves. Still, you start your day as usual. A measured sip of Radithor. A stretch. A subtle hum in your chest that you've trained yourself to believe means strength. And then out into the world again. Because being a modern gentleman means never admitting discomfort unless you can monetize it. You meet a friend for lunch, one of the few in your circle who isn't drinking radium water. He watches you pour a glowing dash into your tea like a man observing a crime in progress. Still on that stuff, he asks, chewing his sandwich slowly. You know it's not actually doing anything right. You smile like you're humoring a child. Not just for you, maybe. He leans in. They said the same thing about leeches and cocaine toothache drops. Doesn't mean it's a smart habit. You stir your tea, pretending not to notice the faint shimmer it leaves on the silver spoon. Besides, he adds casually, did you hear about the American? The one who drank so much of the stuff his jaw fell off? You laugh. You're sure he's exaggerating. It's practically a Victorian ghost story at this point. A cautionary tale passed around salons and dinner parties. You finish your tea anyway, but later that afternoon your gum line tingles. Historians still debate whether Radithor was ever meant to be a real medical treatment, or just a masterclass in marketing. Invented by William J. Bailey, the same overconfident charmer whose name appears on every glowing pamphlet you've seen, Radithor was advertised as triple distilled radioactive water. 2 tiny vials a day said the box would bring strength, youth, and masculine energy. Bailey wasn't a doctor, he was a dropout. But he was a businessman and a good one. He cashed in on the public's trust in science with snake oil that glowed, and nobody questioned him. Not really. You pass by a pharmacy later and see a new ad in the window. You don't have to feel tired, you just have to feel charged. The font is unnecessarily aggressive. Inside, a teenage boy behind the counter sells a glowing tablet to a woman in a fur hat. He never looks up from his magazine. Something in you pauses. That evening in the bath, you notice a small bruise near your collarbone. You don't remember bumping anything. It doesn't hurt, but it does look oddly green around the edges. You shift in the water and tell yourself it's nothing. You've been clenching your jaw in your sleep. Maybe that's why your teeth feel pressure. Still, just to be safe, you skip the tonic for a night, and immediately you feel sluggish, foggy, as if a light inside you has dimmed ever so slightly. You toss and turn for hours, certain your energy's vanished, that your muscles are weaker, that maybe your brain isn't humming the way it did. You get up at 2 a.m., pad barefoot into the kitchen, and crack open another Radithor. Just a sip, just enough to feel right again. The next morning you wake refreshed, almost cocky. The bathwater bruise is still there, but it seems paler now, less urgent. Your teeth ache less. It was probably nothing. Your friend the doubter sends you a newspaper clipping. Folded carefully, no note inside. You flatten it on the table. Radium, some millionaire athlete dies after consuming 400 doses of Radithor. You scoff. Must be a misprint. But the name at the top freezes your blood ebb and buyers. A man you've actually heard of? A champion golfer? A steel magnate? A real person with real money and real good taste. He drank Radithor for years, claimed it made him sharper, stronger. Said it restored his vigor. Just like you've been telling yourself. The article doesn't hold back. By the end of his life, the bones in his skull were so brittle they had to be held together with wax. His lower jaw disintegrated. His breath, they said, glowed faintly. He died surrounded by vials. They had to bury him in a lead-lined coffin. The paper calls it the world's most energetic corpse. You fold the article, tuck it into the back of a drawer, and pour another dose anyway. Why? Because part of you still wants to believe. Not in radium specifically, but in the dream. The dream of being sharper, better, charged from within. And besides, you haven't had any serious side effects. Not really. Yet. Later that week, you visit a dentist. He's a thin, twitchy man with a long mustache that looks like it's trying to escape his face. He frowns the moment you open your mouth. Have you been taking anything unusual, he asks, peering into your molars with a tiny glowing mirror. You freeze. Just vitamins, you lie? Some water supplements. He hums a quiet, disapproving sound and taps his instrument gently on the tray. Your roots are shrinking, he says. Gums receding. It's subtle, but it's there. You nod. Pretend to care. Promise to floss more. Then you go home and drink another vial. Historians still argue whether Eben Byer's death was the true turning point, the beginning of the public backlash, or just a very famous final straw. The product itself was pulled from shelves soon after, yes. But for years after, glowing imitations kept popping up under different names. Because the truth, as always, was slow to outshine the fantasy. You don't stop entirely, you reduce, you say. Only every other day, only smaller doses. Only when you really need a pick-me-up. And that's when it happens. One night, you open your cabinet and stare at the lineup of vials. There's one left, the last one. You hesitate. You reach for it. You pull back. Then you sigh, close the cabinet, and walk away. But your mouth still tastes like metal. You start carrying mints. Not because your breath smells, but because of that taste. That nagging, invisible tang of metal that never quite goes away. It clings to your molars, lurks behind your morning coffee, and reappears at odd times, mid-conversation during a quiet dinner, once even while kissing someone goodbye. It's faint but unmistakable, like licking a coin. You still haven't told anyone. What would you say, really? That your miracle tonic is turning sour? That the glow you once swore by is now starting to feel like a warning light? No. You do what most people do with discomfort, you ignore it. Dress it in denial and keep walking. At least until your jaw begins to ache. Not a sharp pain. Not something dramatic. Just a dull, dragging weight behind your teeth that flares up when you chew something tough or yawn too wide. You chalk it up to stress, to aging, to cold weather. Anything but what you know deep down is the real cause. Meanwhile, the glow market is still going strong. Well, maybe not strong, but glimmering. The way a candle does right before it gutters. People are starting to ask questions. Quietly. An article here, a whisper there. A few doctors have raised concerns, but they're mostly ignored. Or worse, laughed off as Luddites. You even hear one being called afraid of progress in a salon discussion over tea and glowing cucumber sandwiches. Historians still argue whether masculinity played a role in the hesitation to abandon radium treatments. Because let's face it, nothing bruises the Edwardian male ego quite like admitting your teeth are falling out from drinking health. Radium, you see, had become more than just a supplement. It was a statement. A signal. The kind of thing men boasted about at dinner parties or poured into flasks to share in smoking rooms. You remember vividly the first time you heard someone describe it as testosterone in liquid form. He was a stockbroker, jovial, ruddy-cheeked, and just a bit too enthusiastic. He drank Radithor like it was port and claimed it put hair back on his chest and fire in his trousers. You're not sure which was the lie, but you know, now they were both probably radioactive. The logic was always delightfully flawed. Radium, iconheart energy. Energy and not to god masculinity. Simple math. No peer review required. Of course, no one was saying that out loud anymore. Not after Byers, not after the murmurs of lawsuits. But the products were still there, rebranded with slightly more cautious names. Ray Vita? Solar Strength? Vigor Glow? All promising the same thing. Vitality, virility, and a secret glowing edge. You find one of those old pamphlets tucked in a drawer you haven't opened in weeks. The tagline reads, "Drink the sun, become the man." It's laughable now. Or it would be if your teeth weren't starting to shift. You chew gingerly on the left side of your mouth now. The right aches too much. Your gums bleed occasionally, just a little, just enough to make you pause. You tell yourself it's because you've been brushing too hard. You buy a softer toothbrush. The kicker. You're not the only one. Quietly, subtly, you begin to notice the signs in others. A clubmate who suddenly starts wearing a scarf at all hours, even indoors. A friend's sister whose fingernails have gone a strange chalky white. An acquaintance at the opera who excuses himself halfway through to dab at a bleeding nose. You hear rumors of jaw surgeries, quiet burials, a dentist who won't take new radium drinkers anymore, a chemist who closed shop and disappeared overnight. And yet, it hasn't stopped entirely, because some men still believe. They believe because radium made them feel powerful. Because in a world of gas lamps and formal etiquette, of repressed emotions and rigid roles, here was something wild. Something that burned. It's hard to let that go, even if your gums are receding. You visit a doctor. Finally. Quietly. No appointment, just a knock on the back door of a practice that smells of iodine and chalk dust. He examines you in silence. A flashlight in your mouth. A long exhale through his nose. Then how many vials? You pretend not to understand. How many vials, Mr. Nenum Knegam Redithor? Or its cousins. You give a number that's probably half the truth. He nods slowly, sits back, removes his gloves with practiced slowness. Your teeth may begin to loosen. We may be able to stabilize some, but... He hesitates, then says the part no one wants to hear. Once the jaw begins to decay, it tends not to stop. You stare at him. He doesn't blink. Your bones, he adds gently, are beginning to glow. And there it is. The confirmation of something you already suspected. Something you've pushed to the back of your mind every time you saw a flicker in your reflection. Every time you tasted iron. Every time you smiled just a little too wide and felt the pull at the base of your skull. You thank him, politely, leave quietly. And that night you don't drink. Not even a sip. The withdrawal isn't physical exactly, but it is real. You feel dull, heavy, like someone dimmed the contrast on your existence. Your dreams are filled with buzzing, your bones itch. You look in the mirror and half expect to see a stranger, but your jaw stops aching, just a little. You begin to eat soup, soft bread, nothing that requires biting. You carry your mint tin everywhere, more like a talisman than a tool. You've stopped glowing. Mostly. Still, sometimes when the room is dark and the moonlight hits your face just right, you catch something in the mirror. A glint. A pulse. Like the echo of a sun you once swallowed whole. The fog settles heavier now. Not just on the streets of your city, but inside your thoughts too. Each morning your steps feel slower, your appetite smaller, and your body quieter. Not in the peaceful sense. More like how a building is quiet after it's been evacuated. You still go out. You still dress well. Still nod politely to neighbors and tip your hat to passing ladies. But there's a subtle performance to it now. You're playing the part of a healthy man. A radiant man. Even if behind your gloves your fingers tremble. You haven't touched a bottle of Radithor in weeks. The last one sits in your medicine cabinet like a ghost in glass. You keep it, you tell yourself, as a reminder. But part of you knows better. It's still there, because you want it to be. Because late at night, when your bones ache and your teeth feel loose, you stare at it like a starving man might stare at an old menu. You're not alone in this quiet collapse. Across the city, the glow is fading, not metaphorically, but quite literally. Stores are pulling radium goods off shelves. Chemists are nervously updating signage. Clinics are quietly replacing the word energizing with soothing. And those once glorious posters with beaming muscular silhouettes now yellowing in windows, curling at the edges as if ashamed of their former optimism. Then comes a story that changes everything. A report printed not on the back page but in bold ink right on the front. Radium Girl's case gains traction. Workers demand justice. You don't know the full story at first, but it spreads fast. A group of women young, often barely 20, hired to paint clock dials with luminous paint. Lip-dip paint they were taught. They sharpened their brushes with their mouths. Daily, for years. Now their teeth are falling out. Their jaws crumbling. Some are dying slowly, horrifyingly. The paint, it turns out, wasn't just decorating the world, it was consuming them from the inside out. And they're suing. Historians still argue whether this was the tipping point for public opinion, the case that finally turned radium from wonder to warning. But one thing is certain, the Radium girls as they become known take the glow off the miracle. You read every article. You devour every update. And each paragraph feels like it's describing you in gentler terms. Your jaw hasn't crumbled yet, but the bruises come faster. Your skin heals slower. You sleep longer but wake more tired. And now everyone's talking. A man at your club confesses he's having his teeth removed proactively just in case. Another has switched to homeopathy, mumbling about herbs and balance, while his nose softly bleeds into his cravat. One acquaintance claims his energy pills were never radioactive. Thank you very much, despite having passed out free samples to half the ballroom last winter. The collective delusion is shattering. Your friend the skeptic from months ago visits. He looks older than you remember. Or maybe just sadder. I told you so, he says quietly, not unkindly. But I wish I'd been wrong. You sit together in silence just for a while. No glowing drinks, no powdered promises. Just tea and the kind of companionship that comes from shared mistakes. Later that week, you visit your dentist again. The one with the escape artist mustache. He examines you slowly with less judgment this time. Maybe with something like pity. The lower jaw's holding, he says. For now. You nod numb to your own news. You've learned to measure time not in hours, but in how much damage hasn't progressed. He leans in. You should consider having your bones scanned. There are new methods. Safer. You raise an eyebrow. Safer than drinking radiation. He smiles tightly. The bar's not high. On the way home, you pass a familiar corner, a storefront that used to glow brighter than a circus tent. Now the gold lettering is scraped off. The door is shuttered. A faded sticker in the window reads, "Closed due to new regulations." You almost smile. Not quite. That night, you take the last bottle from the cabinet. It feels heavier than you remember. The glow inside is weaker now, too. Like it knows its time is up. You hold it in your hands. Consider pouring it out. Instead, you place it back on the shelf. Let it fade. You've heard rumors people burying theirs in gardens, hiding them in basements, or mailing them to chemists out of guilt. One man supposedly dropped his bottle into the Thames and claimed he saw it sink like a star returning to its sky. And yet a few fools still sell, still promise. You see them sometimes in alleys and train stations whispering to hopeful men who haven't read the news. Small batch, they'll say. The good stuff. Quiet. No labels. They pull vials from coat pockets like contraband poetry. You walk past them. You don't stop. You're not better, but you're aware. That counts for something. In the quiet of your room, you roll up your sleeves and check your arms. The bruises are still there, like shadows that no longer go away when the light returns. But your reflection seems steadier. Dimmer maybe, but also less artificial. You don't glow anymore. You just exist. And for now, that's enough. You spend more time indoors now. Not out of fear exactly, just recalibration. Your pace has changed. Your routines have quieted. You're no longer chasing radiance in a bottle, no longer haunting apothecaries for something new to spark the nerves. There's a stillness to your days now, a kind of reckoning. Outside the city is beginning its slow, embarrassed withdrawal. The same newspapers that once praised radium as mankind's bottled sunrise are now printing retractions. Editorials drip with caution, not confidence. The language has shifted from miracle element to misunderstood hazard. You'd laugh if your jaw didn't ache when you smile. You walk through the chemist's row one gray afternoon and notice something. Striking displays of glowing products have been replaced. Radium lip balms swapped for glycerin creams. Tonics replaced with barley waters and bitters. Even the packaging looks different. Fewer lightning bolts, more leaves, and sunlight. You recognize a brand of radium toothpaste, Radiadent, now rebranded as Radiance-Free Smile Paste. As if that little hyphen could erase history, one former tonic shop is now selling home ferment kits and herbal teas. A sign in the window reads, "New safe, simple, sane." 3 adjectives that feel revolutionary now. You step inside curious. The shelves smell of dried lavender and cardamom. No more fizzing, no more glass that glows. The clerk is young, sharp-eyed. He sees your limp as you browse and doesn't comment. Just points to a tin of white willow bark. Good for the joints, he says softly. No side effects. You thank him, politely. You don't buy anything. Because the truth is, there's no fixing this. Not completely. Historians still debate whether society ever truly apologized to the people who believed. Whether the newspapers, the doctors, the peddlers of pseudoscience ever took real responsibility. Or whether they simply rebranded and moved on as so many do, folding catastrophe into commerce and hoping no one remembers too vividly. You do. One evening you attend a lecture. Public science hosted in a modest hall with gas lamps and foldable chairs. The speaker is a woman rare in these settings, and she stands calmly behind a podium made from salvaged wood. She begins with a phrase you've never heard spoken aloud before. Radiation poisoning. It lands like a gong in your chest. She doesn't preach. She simply explains what they now know about the element's behavior. How it lingers in the bones. How it mimics calcium. How it breaks you down not all at once, but over years. A slow unraveling. An erosion written into your very marrow. People around you shift uncomfortably. Some nod. Others cross their arms. But no one leaves. She closes her lecture with a warning, not a farewell. Science is only as good as the questions we're willing to ask. And we didn't ask nearly enough. Afterward, you approach her. Thank her. She looks at you not with sympathy, but recognition. Were you one of them? She asks quietly. You nod. She doesn't flinch. You're not alone. Not anymore. It's the first time anyone said that to you. On your way home, you think about all the ways radium once promised to improve your life. Health, energy, confidence, charisma, even love. And now you dream smaller. You dream of solid meals, of holding a conversation without feeling winded, of sleeping through the night without jaw pain waking you at 2 a.m. You run your tongue along the inside of your mouth where the gum line has receded like a tide that won't return. You can feel the ridge of bone beneath it now. It's sharp. Too sharp. But you're still here. There's a kind of power in survival. A grim power maybe, but power nonetheless. You begin writing. Not a book, not yet. Just notes. Memories. A quiet log of your experience, how it began, how it felt, how it dimmed. You don't know who you're writing it for. Yourself, maybe. Or someone decades from now who stumbles on it in a forgotten drawer and wonders what it was like to drink the sun and live to regret it. You include the small things too, the taste of metal. The way your tongue sometimes clicks against your molars, the way light in the mirror once made your face look otherworldly. You even include that first ad that made you laugh, the smiling cartoon man hit by a lightning bolt. You don't laugh at it anymore. You've started visiting other survivors. Quiet meetings held behind bookstores and in the backs of cafes. Some people lost teeth, others had worse. A man with a cane who used to sell glowing cough syrup. A woman whose mother used radium face powder daily for a decade. Everyone's story is slightly different, but the glow connects them. A shared haunting. You don't cry at these meetings, but you don't pretend either. One man, old, frail, with clouded eyes, brings a box to the meeting one night. Inside, velvet-lined, is a vial of Radithor. Untouched. He places it on the table like an offering. No one speaks for a long time. Then someone whispers, "Let's bury it." Everyone nods. The next morning you gather in a quiet park. You dig a hole not too deep, but far enough that the soil feels cool. The vial is lowered in gently, reverently, as if it were something holy and dangerous, which in a way it is. You cover it in dirt. Someone places a smooth stone over the spot. No words. Just the wind moving through the trees and a kind of peace settling in your ribs. You walk home lighter. Not healed, but lighter. The seasons begin to turn. Leaves, yellow skies dim, and the air takes on that brittle edge of late autumn, the kind that makes you pull your coat tighter, even when the chill isn't quite there yet. And with the fading of summer comes something else, the fading of radium's shine in the public eye. Quietly, persistently, the miracle is being recast as a mistake. You walk the streets and realize just how many storefronts are gone. The once luminous tonic boutiques converted into tea shops, booksellers' quiet tailors. You spot one that's become a photography studio. A sign on the window reads, "We capture light, no need to drink it." Clever, a little mean, but clever. You don't miss the tonic shops. What you do miss, if you're honest, is the certainty, the faith, the rush that came with believing in something new, Something modern, something unstoppable. That glimmering hope in every bottle, that smooth-talking confidence in the lectures, the ads, the testimonials. You were part of a movement, part of a glow. Now you're part of a whisper. There's talk everywhere now of investigations. Lawsuits piling like winter coal. Families demanding answers. Doctors testifying. Newspapers once again turning their sights on William J. Bailey, the man who sold you your strength and left your teeth loose in your gums. But this time they're not treating him like a genius. Now he's a pariah, a charlatan, a murderer in a necktie. Historians still argue how sincere Bailey ever was. Whether he truly believed in Radither or simply saw an opportunity and chased it like a dog after a carriage. Some suggest he drank his own product, perhaps even to the bitter end. Others insist he knew exactly what he was doing, selling bottled radiation with the poise of a surgeon and the ethics of a pickpocket. Either way, he disappears from public life. No more lectures, no more ads, just silence. And in the spaces where his voice once roared, doubt creeps in. You attend another lecture different from the last. This one less clinical, more personal. A nurse speaks. Her hands tremble only slightly as she describes watching a woman waste away. Skin like parchment, breath glowing, joints locking, a body folding inward like burnt paper. She thought it was healing her, the nurse says, voice catching. Right to the end. And that you realize is the cruelest trick of all. The pain didn't come with a warning label, it came as a gift, wrapped in glass, whispering promises you wanted so badly to believe. You return home that night to find a letter. Handwritten. From a cousin, someone you'd barely spoken to before all this. She's heard of your condition. She wants to know what it was like, whether it really worked. Whether it still works even after everything. You reread her question. You don't know how to answer. Instead, you write about the glow. Not just the physical light, but the way it made you feel. Larger, brighter, more real. You write about the early days, the euphoria, the buzz in your fingertips, the way even your handwriting changed, like your pen had more authority. And then you write about the dreams, the aches, the blood on your pillow, the way your jaw clicks now when you yawn. You don't send the letter, you fold it into your journal, tuck it between the pages like a pressed flower from a summer that scorched more than it bloomed. You begin to see doctors regularly, nothing fancy, just maintenance. They poke gently at your bones, x-ray your skull, ask the same quiet questions. How's your appetite? How's the pain? How's your energy? You lie mostly, because what's the alternative to say you feel hollow? That your body doesn't hum anymore, it whispers like wind through old rafters. That some mornings you wake up and can't remember if you dreamed of light or simply sweated through the night. No, you say you're doing all right. One physician does something different. He doesn't ask questions. Instead, he listens. Really listens. His office is small, the walls lined with books that smell like dust and ink. After your appointment, as you rise to leave, he places a hand gently on your arm. You're not broken, he says. You're altered, but not broken. You carry those words for days. Meanwhile, rumors bubble up that governments are reevaluating radiation regulations. That radium production is being tightened. Labs being closed, shipments delayed. One paper prints a leaked memo suggesting some forms of the element may soon be illegal for public sale. You don't celebrate. You just nod. It was always going to end this way. The glow was never meant to last. One afternoon you stroll through the park. The leaves crunch beneath your shoes and a thin veil of mist curls around the iron fence posts. Children are playing with hoops. A man reads a novel on a bench. Everything feels very far away. Not because of the fog, but because your body now feels like it moves at a different frequency. Slower. Dimmer. You sit beneath an elm tree and remove your gloves. Look at your hands. The skin is thinner than it used to be. Pale. The veins map strange, fragile rivers, but they're yours. Still working, still warm. And for the first time in months, you feel no ache in your jaw. No metallic taste. No phantom tingling. Just a long, steady breath. You've started taking shorter walks. Not out of weakness, really, just an acknowledgement of your body's new rhythm. You've learned how far you can go before your knees complain when your breath starts to fray, and which benches catch the best afternoon light. You pace yourself now. Measure your energy not in miles, but in moments. The city continues its quiet course correction. You pass a museum one morning, one of those grand old buildings with columns and banners advertising curiosity, and notice a new exhibit has gone up. The poster shows a glowing bottle eerily familiar under bold black letters. Radiance and Ruin, the Age of Radium. You almost keep walking. But then again, how many times in your life will you get to stand in a glass box and see your own mistakes turned into history? Inside, it's all too bright. Marble floors, glass display cases, smooth signs with neat fonts. You wander past them slowly like a ghost walking through old echoes. There's a shelf filled with Radithor bottles. Some full, most empty. Beneath them, a photo of William J. Bailey smiling with the kind of charisma that only someone peddling radioactive snake oil could maintain. The caption reads, "Entrepreneur or exploiter, the debate endures." Historians still argue whether men like Bailey believed in their glowing elixirs or simply capitalized on a culture drunk on progress. Some point to Bailey's public consumption of Radithor as evidence of faith. Others suggest it was pure theater, an act to sell trust in a bottle. Next to the photo, a letter, typed, yellowed. It's from Eben Byers. Your eyes lock on the lines. It took away my strength, my teeth, my face. Let others be warned. The breath leaves your chest for a second too long. You move on. There's a glowing dial from a pocket watch painted by one of the Radium girls. It pulses faintly under the dimmed exhibit lights. A photo of a young woman in a smock holding a brush between her lips stares out from the wall beside it. Below a quote, "They told us it was safe. They told us it was beautiful." You close your eyes. Just for a moment. Further in, there's a case labeled Everyday Elegance. It holds things you once used without a second thought: toothpaste soap, face powder, razor tonic. Products that had been part of your ritual, and now sealed behind glass under placards that use words like contaminated and fatal dosage. You imagine what your own medicine cabinet would look like in a display like this. One gentleman's regret. Would anyone stop and stare? You reach the final section of the exhibit, a quiet, darkened alcove with a single chair and a projected reel of silent footage. Glowing dances, smiling socialites. An animated ad where a cartoon man takes one sip and turns into a glowing Hercules. The film flickers, skips loops. You sit down and you let it play. No commentary, no correction. Just the world as it once was, daring you to remember how willing you were to believe in miracles. When the lights return to normal, you rise and step out into the real world again. The sun doesn't burn like it used to. You think maybe that's a good thing. The next week, you're invited to a small gathering, fewer than a dozen guests. It's hosted by one of the men from your recovery circle. There's soup, warm bread, no glow, no hype, just people, breathing, talking, living with what's left. You bring the letter you never sent, the one for your cousin. You read it aloud. No one interrupts. No one tries to correct your memory. They just listen. Not to the science, not to the timeline, but to you. To your voice, your pauses, the ache tucked between your sentences, after someone places a hand on your shoulder. Thank you for surviving, they say. It's harder than people think. And it is. Surviving isn't glamorous. It's not heroic. It's limping home after the parade, picking glitter from your scalp, weeks after the celebration ended, and realizing you still have to do the dishes. It's outlasting a lie and living long enough to understand its shape. You've begun to sleep better. Not every night, but some. The dreams are quieter now. Less vivid. No more glowing water or whispering bottles. No more jaw pain waking you in the dark. Just wind, trees, silence. You start a project. Nothing big. A book, maybe. Or just a compilation of experiences, yours and others. A document of glow and grief. You write in longhand. Your fingers are slower now, but they still work. The ink spreads across the page like a kind of antidote. Sometimes in the margin, you sketch little bottles. Empty. Just for the record, one morning as you walk by a street artist painting on the side of an old warehouse, you notice his mural. It's not radium related, not directly, but it stops you. It shows a person half in light, half in shadow. The caption below: We believed in light, we learned to see. You stand there longer than you mean to, and you smile carefully, because this is your life now. No glow, no glory, just clarity. You rise earlier these days. Not by choice exactly, your body just insists. Some mornings it feels like your bones are in silent negotiation with gravity. They're willing, but only if you move slowly, deliberately, like an old phonograph easing into song. The city outside your window hums with a gentler frequency now. Less bombastic. The glow is gone from the billboards, and the headlines scream about other things. New technologies, market shifts, politics with fresher disasters. But beneath all of that, you sense a lingering tension. Like a bruise that still hasn't faded even after the wound has closed. Every so often someone brings it up. At a dinner party, a man leans over a soup bowl and says, "Remember those Radium tonic ads my uncle swore by them? Used to drink it before breakfast." His tone is nostalgic, almost amused. As if describing a foolish fashion choice, not a brush with molecular decay. You don't laugh, you stir your soup. Others chime in, voices bouncing between mockery and unease. One woman recalls the glowing corsets. Another mentions a spa in Germany still offering mild radon baths. You glance around and realize no one knows who among them might still be carrying that glow in their marrow. You excuse yourself early. Later in your quiet kitchen, you write a new journal entry. Not for your cousin, not for the historians. For you, you write, I didn't. People don't remember pain. Not really. They remember the thrill that preceded it. The glow, not the fallout. And it's true, it always has been. Historians still debate how deeply the radium craze influenced modern health fads. Some trace the lineage, directly drawing lines from radioactive elixirs to questionable wellness tonics, from glowing creams to today's wrinkle-free, side-effect optional injectables. Others argue the radium episode was a unique collision of naivete, nationalism, and novelty. A moment too strange to repeat. You aren't sure. The packaging changes, yes. But the hunger that need to glow to feel. Something working inside you that never quite goes away. You begin corresponding with a young scientist from the university. She's working on radiation detection methods, safer tools, better measurements. You send her clippings notes, observations from your own experience. She responds with gratitude with questions. You tell her about the aches, the metallic breath, the bone-deep fatigue. She tells you about isotopes, decay chains, half-lives. It's comforting in a strange way to put numbers to your condition. To know there's a formula, even if it doesn't end in healing. Eventually, she asks if you'd consider donating tissue samples after you die. You agree, not out of sentiment, but out of utility. If your missteps can become data points, if your glow can be converted into knowledge, then at least it didn't burn through you for nothing. You don't tell anyone about this arrangement. It's not a secret, it's just not dinner party material. Instead, you return to your routine. Short walks, careful meals, mild tea always lukewarm. On days when your hands feel steady, you write a little more. The journal's grown thick, now full of small, quiet entries. Today, my teeth did not move. I walked past a glowing watch and felt nothing. A child asked me why I don't glow like the stories. I said, because I learned. You attend another meeting. This one's smaller than usual. Only 6 people. One man wears gloves not for fashion, but to hide the way his fingers have curled. Another woman leans heavily on a cane carved with a wolf's head. No one speaks until the tea is poured. Then a young man new breaks the silence. I never drank the stuff, he says, but my father did. Every day. Called it his secret weapon. By the end? Well, we don't talk about the end. You nod gently. You've heard this story before in different clothes with different endings. But it's always the same beginning. I believed. The meeting ends with a kind of unspoken ritual. Each person presses a hand to the center of the table, no words, no ceremony. Just presence. And then you all go your separate ways, slipping back into your corners of the world, like threads unwinding from a loom. Back home, you clean your shelves. One by one, you remove the old glass bottles you couldn't bring yourself to toss. You rinse them, dry them, wrap them in newspaper. And then one night, you carry them to the edge of the river. You don't throw them in. You bury them. just beneath the frost line near the roots of a maple tree that's always bloomed late. You mark the spot with a stone not carved, not labeled, just chosen for its weight. And when you rise knees, aching jaw, sore back stiff, you still smile. Because you're lighter. Not healed, but honest. You walk home beneath a moon that doesn't glow enough to blind. You drink water that tastes only like water. And you dream of nothing at all. Time has become quieter. Not faster, not slower, just less insistent. The days blur gently now, the way clouds drift without announcing where they're going. You measure things differently, not in ambition, not in milestones, but in ease. Can you lift the kettle without wincing today? Did you sleep without dreams? Did your reflection feel more like a person and less like a memory? You still wake early, and when you do, you often find yourself sitting by the window watching people pass. Young couples with their coats buttoned too high. Children with paper toys and sugar-sticky fingers. Vendors rolling carts with roasted chestnuts. None of them glowing, none of them aware of what their city once swallowed. You hear a knock at the door. It's your neighbor, an older gentleman with a voice like a gravel path, and an unlit pipe tucked always into his mouth. He carries a newspaper under his arm and a folder in his hand. Thought you'd want to see this, he says, holding out the folder. Inside, a flyer from the university, a symposium. The legacy of medical radium reckoning recovery reflection. You raise an eyebrow. They're looking for first-hand accounts, he says. Voices that remember. You hold the flyer like it's something alive. Something that hums faintly beneath your fingers. Maybe you murmur. The symposium isn't for another month, but it lingers in your thoughts. You reread the flyer each morning as if waiting for the words to change. They don't. They simply sit there patient and serious. You don't want to be a symbol. You've seen enough symbols, statues, plaques, shadow box exhibits, with captions that try to compress agony into 200 words or less. But maybe, just maybe, you can be a voice. One that doesn't glow anymore but still resonates. Historians still argue whether the radium tragedy was preventable or inevitable. Some call it industrial overreach. Others blame a naive faith in progress. A few insist the real culprit was the culture of silence people, too afraid, too proud, or too complicit to ask hard questions until the answers came too late. You lived through that silence. You watched it crumble. You decide to attend. The symposium is held in a modest hall on the university grounds newly built, yet styled like it's always been there. Wrought iron lamps, worn velvet seats, polished wood that smells of lemon oil and old decisions. You sit near the back. At first it feels strange watching others dissect what once lived inside you. Charts and slides, graphs, and isotope models. A young physicist explains decay rates with mathematical glee. An ethics professor outlines the failures in medical regulation. A historian reads aloud from periodicals, her voice clear but clipped. And then comes the survivors panel. There are 3 of you. You didn't rehearse. No one told you what to say. Just that you were here to remember. When it's your turn, you don't stand. You stay seated, hands folded. You begin softly. I used to believe I was drinking strength. And the room goes still. You speak of the warmth, the confidence, the taste of metal, the ache behind your molars, the first time you woke to blood on the pillow, the way people looked at you then and now. You mention the museum, the burial in the park, the letter you never sent. You don't cry. You don't need to. By the time you finish, the room isn't silent. It's reverent. People don't clap. They just sit with you in that shared pause. That recognition, that ripple of discomfort that means something real has been said. Afterward, a young woman with sharp eyes and a notebook approaches. She asks if she can quote you. You shrug. It's not mine anymore. I gave it away. She smiles. That's the bravest thing I've heard today. You smile back. That's only because you didn't hear me try to get out of bed this morning. You stay for the rest of the day. You listen. You learn. You offer small nods to fellow attendees. One man brings you tea and thanks you for your honesty. Another says his grandfather died from something similar. He doesn't know the details. You don't need to, you say gently. You just need to remember he was more than the thing that ended him. That evening you walk home through crisp air and long shadows. The city has changed. Not fast, not dramatically, but undeniably. The glow is gone, yes. But something brighter remains: the willingness to ask better questions. To be skeptical of certainty. to sit with the discomfort of doubt. And maybe that's the closest thing to progress this world ever really gets. Back home, you uncap your pen. You write one more journal entry. I gave away the glow, but I kept the story. Then you place your journal on the shelf beside your books. Not hidden, not on display, just there. Like you. Still here, still steady. The next morning, your knees protest, your spine sighs, and your teeth remind you politely but persistently that some consequences never entirely fade. But none of that matters right now, because as you sit down with a cup of weak tea, a letter is waiting by the door. It's from the university. A thank you note mostly formal, but in the last paragraph, handwritten in blue ink, is this line. Your story lit the room, not with radiation, but with reckoning. You fold the letter slowly. Place it beside the flyer from the symposium. Keepsakes from a version of you that still glows, but now only in memory. You go for a walk. The city's bones feel familiar now. You pass buildings that used to advertise strength in a bottle, now offering brunch or tax advice. No trace remains unless you know where to look. You find yourself at the river again. The same spot where you buried the bottles. The tree still stands. The stone you placed is slightly sunken now, moss curling around its edges. You kneel carefully and place a hand on the earth. No words, just acknowledgement. The bottle's not calling you anymore. There's no tug in your chest, no phantom craving. It's buried like a bad decision finally forgiven. You rise and keep walking. Past old buildings and new posters, past buskers playing off-key violins and pigeons who believe in crumbs like you once believed in radium. You catch a glimpse of a child chasing their shadow and marvel that once you were chasing yours too. A brighter one. Manufactured. Back home, there's a letter from your cousin. The one you never replied to, but who, perhaps sensing the silence, has decided to write again anyway. She writes of her children, of her garden, of a recent headache, and how a neighbor suggested some new vitamin pills that will energize at the cellular level. You wince, fold the paper, then write back. Ask questions, you scrawl, and never believe anything that glows. You add a smiley face, a crude one, but sincere. Historians still debate how much public trust was permanently damaged by the radium craze. Whether society ever truly learned its lesson. Some point to future disasters thalidomide asbestos, leaded fuel, and argue the arc of ignorance is less a curve and more a loop. Others claim each misstep carves a deeper capacity for caution. You wonder which camp you belong to. You remember your glow. You remember the bottle. You remember the ache that arrived dressed as power. But now you don't reach for strength in a vial. You reach for paper. You start a memoir. Not a sweeping epic, just stories. Fragments. Vignettes of one man's fall into light and climb out again. You title it, tentatively, Too Bright to Swallow. You chuckle at your own pun. No one else might find it funny. That's fine. Some jokes are meant for the writer. You begin with the moment you first saw the ad. That absurd cartoon man getting zapped into vitality. And how you thought, that could be me. You write honestly about the swelling pride, the misplaced hope, the pain, the denial, the strange camaraderie among the quietly glowing, the clubs, the cold spoons, the false smiles, the nights. You make a decision you won't let anyone edit it, not to soften the language, not to shape it into inspiration. You want it real. Because if it's not real, then it's just another advertisement. You look out the window as dusk arrives, subtle and unannounced. The light shifts through your curtains. Golden, but not radioactive. You still wear gloves sometimes. Not because you're hiding anything, just habit. But today you take them off. Let your hands rest on the windowsill. Let the air touch them. You wiggle your fingers. They're thinner, yes. Slightly bent, but they move. And for the first time in a while, you don't feel like a relic. You feel like a survivor who stopped glowing and started writing. That night you sleep deeply. No aches, no visions, no midnight bleeding. Just sleep, like a body that remembers how to be still. The pages keep coming. Day by day, word by word, you build something. Not a grand monument, just a record. Something future you can read when the memories begin to blur like fog on glass. Your handwriting has gotten more careful, more deliberate. There's no hurry, just rhythm. Sometimes when you pause, you picture your younger self, the man in the mirror who once grinned with luminous teeth and thought he'd found the secret to endless vitality. That man still lives in the story, preserved like a butterfly under glass. You don't hate him. You don't even pity him. You simply nod and keep writing. People begin to visit. Not many, just a few. Some from the university, others from the survivor circle. They bring warm pastries, new research articles, sometimes books with your name mentioned, briefly in the acknowledgments. You've become a source, a witness, a quiet authority on an era most people now consider weird old history. They always ask the same question eventually. Did it really feel that good? And every time you answer the same way, that was the problem. One visitor is different. She's young, barely 20, with ink on her fingers and more questions than time. A student journalist working on an article titled, "The Glow We Regret." She sits with her notebook tight against her chest and asks permission before recording. You say yes. Her questions are pointed, clear-eyed, but not cruel. She asks about the science, yes, but also the feeling. What it meant to believe in something so profoundly that even your bones agreed. You speak slowly, carefully. She writes furiously occasionally, looking up to confirm she's heard you write. At the end, she closes her notebook and says softly, "I think we're doing it again." You raise an eyebrow. She tells you about the new wellness chips, the microcurrent bracelets, the influencer who claims her supplements align your blood with the Earth's vibration. And you laugh, not bitterly, not mockingly, just softly. Oh, you say, the glow never really leaves. It just changes costumes. Historians still argue whether humanity is wired for belief or simply conditioned for it. Whether we cling to promises of vitality because we fear death or because we've never quite accepted aging. Some frame it as optimism. Others call it delusion. You just call it familiar. After she leaves, you sit with her words for a while. We're doing it again. You hope not, but you wouldn't bet against it. Later, you receive a package. No return address. Inside, a single Radithor bottle still sealed. No note. Just the bottle nestled in cotton like it's something sacred or dangerous. Your first instinct is to recoil. Your second is to laugh. You place it on your kitchen table and stare at it under the lamplight. The liquid still glows faintly like a secret that refuses to die. You don't open it. You don't bury it. You display it. Not proudly, not defiantly, just honestly. You place a tiny card beside it. This is what belief looked like. When guests come, they always ask if it's real. You nod. Then you watch their expressions. Some are amused, some shocked, some disturbed. A few lean in eyes sparkling and whisper, "It's beautiful." You don't say anything. You just nod slowly. Because it is beautiful, that's the tragedy. One morning you wake with pain in your ribs. Not sharp, not new, but persistent. Like a song you've forgotten the lyrics to, but still hum under your breath. You sit at your writing desk and scribble 3 words. It's beginning again. You close the journal and rest your hand on it for a long while. Then you do what you've always done. You dress, you walk, you keep moving. You attend another lecture, this one about ethics in modern medicine. The speaker mentions radium in passing an infamous case, he calls it. You smile faintly. Infamous, yes, but not forgotten. You raise your hand, not to ask a question, just to say I was there. The room shifts. You don't say much more. You don't need to. Afterward, a woman stops you in the hallway. You're the man from the exhibit, she says. The survivor. You pause. I'm the man who drank hope and lived to write about it. She blinks, unsure if it's meant to be funny. You don't help her decide. Later that evening, you pass the same mural again. The one of the figure, half in light, half in shadow. You stand in front of it, eyes tracing the soft gradient from glow to dusk. Someone's added new graffiti beneath the original caption. We believed in light. We learned to see. Now it reads, honk, and now we remember. You nod, and you keep walking. Winter arrives not with fanfare, but with stillness. You wake to frost, tracing the edges of your window like a quiet artist sketching reminders in silver. The radiator clicks faintly, the kettle hisses before it sings, and your joints stretch like reluctant old springs. The bottle on your table... Yes, that bottle catches the morning light and throws it gently across the kitchen. You've grown used to it now. Not numb to it, but reconciled. Like a scar you've stopped covering with long sleeves. It's not a warning, it's just part of the architecture of your life. You still write? The memoir has grown fat with ink and effort. Pages ripple with the heat of the past. You're nearly done, and you feel it like a held breath just before release. You want the last line to land. You don't know what it will be yet. But you trust it's coming. A letter arrives midweek, stamped with the university seal. They've digitized your talk. It's online now. The email says it's circulating widely. You stare at those words for a long time. You were never trying to go wide. You were just trying to be heard. That night, you click the link. The video buffer spins, and then there you are. Your voice, your chair, your careful hands folded together. You watch yourself speak about glow and consequence and the strange intimacy of regret. The comments scroll endlessly. My grandfather took Radithor. I never knew the full story. Thank you for speaking. Why did they let this happen? You don't answer them, you just close the window. Not out of sadness, out of fullness. Because they're listening now, that's enough. You spend the next few days indoors. Snow begins to fall, not the dramatic storybook kind. The quiet stuff. The kind that makes the world feel padded, softened, gentle. You begin sorting the papers, the journals, the drafts of your memoir. Some of it will go to the archive per the university's request. Some will stay in your flat. You imagine someone decades from now lifting one of your pages and reading it aloud to a group of students. Maybe they'll chuckle at your jokes. Maybe they'll wince at your details. Maybe they'll understand. Historians still argue whether stories like yours should be told as warnings or as lessons. Whether the glow should be seen as tragedy or transformation. Whether suffering dignifies or simply lingers. You no longer need to decide, you just need to finish. So you do. You write your final page. It ends simply. I chased the light, then I learned to carry the dark. You set the pen down. You breathe. Outside, the snow has coated everything, the steps, the benches, the tree where you once buried the past. It gleams under the moonlight like a frozen canvas. And for the first time in a long while, the glow outside is real and harmless in yours. You put on your coat, your scarf, your worn gloves, and step into the quiet. Each footstep leaves a mark. Each mark fades behind you. You walk until your breath fogs in front of your face like speech unspoken. Then you tilt your head back and stare at the stars. They burn so far away, so cold and relentless and unreachable. But they don't scare you anymore, because you know better now. You know what it's like to hold a star in your hand and drink it down and survive the aftermath. You turn home. The path is steady. The night is silent. And you are still here. Let yourself lie back now. Let the weight of all that light and longing drift from your shoulders. You've walked far tonight through dim halls and glowing bottles through hope, mistaken for strength and through the quiet that follows after. Breathe gently. The story is complete, but your breath is still writing new pages. The sounds around you now, maybe it's a hum from your fan or the soft murmur of night traffic or the hush of nothing at all, those are yours. This moment belongs to you, untouched by radiance or regret. Let your fingers uncurl. Let your jaw unclench. The world is quieter than the one you've just explored. Here, there's no need to glow to be real. No need to ache to be remembered. You've heard enough. You've seen the arc of belief and consequence. You've walked the long path back from myth to meaning. And now there's only rest. The kind of rest that comes after a story well told. The kind that seeps into your muscles and reassures you that no bottle of light will ever be more precious than the dark, steady rhythm of your own breath. So drift gently as softly as snow falling over forgotten stones. The stars are watching, but tonight they keep their distance, because tonight the light belongs to you. Good night, glowing soul. End of script. Sweet dreams.